My name is Clara Towson, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
I am Francisca George, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Susan Leemans, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom. Yeah.
My name is Zainab Sammaz, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hey guys, my name is Sasha Vickery, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hi, my name is Lloyd Harris, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Jan Faria, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Yes.
Take one. Well done.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Paolini, and I'm a friend of the show.
Wow, Jasmine, you got it in one time.
Ready? Play.
Well, hello there, and welcome to WTA Weekly. As you can see, I'm not used to doing this. I've had a little of a long break, but we're back. 2025 is here, and I'm very pleased to be joined by our fellow Italian superstar Jasmine Paolini, Mr. Mario Vicardi. How are you doing, Mario?
Fine mentally, but physically I'm not so well these days. However, it's fine actually. Having a flu as one positive side, you stay home, you can watch plenty of tennis matches without having sense of guilty because there's kind of nothing else you can do. And no, I mean, actually, I think we have already started with some incredible matches this year. It's been an incredibly fun, 10, 12 days, this first, let's say, 10 days of the season. So I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, I mean, do you think, well, I think we're going to start with United Cup because that's where all the dramas kind of come from. What I wanted to kind of say was, do you think United Cup kind of feels a little bit like a 2-week 1000 now, given it's a 10-day event with all these big superstars playing in both men's and women's singles?
I mean, probably a little bit, yes, even if it already started that way. Actually, the first year was even kind of longer. There were those incredibly long ties with 4 single matches. It was a little bit too much. Actually, I really like this competition. I just like, the way we start the year with the team environment, women and men pairing up and playing, for the country before the first slam of the season. So, I actually enjoy the competition a lot. Probably not ideal when there is the semifinal and there's one team who maybe travel that night from Perth to Sydney, can get a little bit tricky. But yeah, overall, I really enjoy the competition, and I think this year, it's been as fun as usual.
Yeah, it's definitely fun. It's my favorite team event.
Mine as well, actually.
Out of the team events that there are, I think it ticks all the boxes for me. You get all the superstars showing up. You've got it worth ranking points, and it's also actually a point in the season and in a location where it's very relevant to the overall story of the season, giving it's kind of like trying to establish itself as the main Australian Open warm-up. Although we have yet to see someone do well at the United Cup and then carry that momentum into the Australian Open. I mean, given some of the storylines we've seen from the United Cup, do you think this year might be the first year where that happens?
Probably. I mean, they're so considering that you also have Sabalenka winning in Brisbane, and the player who won Brisbane never won the Australian Open. I don't know. Probably this is going to change, maybe, because with Swiatek, Gauff doing well at the United Cup, Sabalenka winning in Brisbane, I think we can say these 3 players are the favorite for the title. So let's see if any of these three players will win the title in Melbourne as well, and I wouldn't really be surprised if that happens.
Yeah, you're right. It's never been Brisbane that's won it. Although, if I look back over the last few years, it's 2021 onwards. It's been whoever's reached at least the semi-finals of the first kind of 500 of the year. That first week 500 has generally been the one who's gone on to win the tournament. So Osaka was a semi-finalist in that one of the Melbourne warm-ups in 21. 22 was Barty winning. Was it Adelaide at the time? And then
probably yes, because also Sabalenka in 23, it was Adelaide, and then the Australian Open.
Yeah, they went Adelaide, and then they switched to Brisbane last year, where Sabalenka reached the final.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, with the strong players, actually, we always talk about this kind of curses. It's more or less for fun, because when you have such strong players, you know, doing so well in the first week or so of the season, it's a bit difficult to not see them then doing well at the Australian Open. I mean, last year we had big surprises because, you know, 2 of the 3 favorites at the time, you know, Swiatek and Rybakina, then didn't reach the second week in Melbourne. But I don't know, probably it won't happen this year as well. Let's see.
Yeah, let's see. I think it's certainly possible that this is the year that everything changes, given the amount of WTA top 10 players who were playing United Cup. I mean, that was the place to be. I mean, the only other, the other top 10 players that were kind of taking part, I think Krejcikova, is now not playing the Australian Open. That's big news.
Yeah.
So I think she didn't play Brisbane. Sabalenka obviously played Brisbane. Pegula was going to play, but she withdrew due to injury. So it was just literally Pegula, Navarro, and Kasatkina. And then everyone else, apart from Zheng Qinwen, was at United Cup. So we'll have to see where it goes. And actually, if you just took the United Cup and like pretended that was just a WTA tournament, that semi-final lineup that they had was pretty much like a dream for a Grand Slam or a 1000 that you could have had. If you had at a Grand Slam or a 1000, Swiatek, Rybakina, and Gauff, Muchova, everyone would be like, yes, please. That is almost a dream semi-final lineup.
Yeah, absolutely. If you also think about, you know, Muchova against Paolini being kind of a quarterfinal as it's been in the United Cup. And then, I mean, we definitely wouldn't know, for example, Sabalenka cannot play the United Cup. Maybe she would have played there as well. Who knows? Let's see. It's definitely, you know, been the place of the main focus this week. And, you know, it's been incredible, even if, you know, the final matches have all been straight setters. They have all still been, you know, very, very good to watch, very high quality, and, you know, definitely fun to, you know, to the final stages of the competition. So, yeah, let's see in Melbourne what we will have. But, you know, I think it's difficult to imagine a semi-final lineup which won't be fun. Considering in such a, you know, the big form we have the top players right now, you know, all of them kind of showed up really well because, you know, Swiatek, Rybakina as well played well, I think. And then you have Muchova, of course, you know, she finished strong in 24 and picked up where she left off this year, having a very strong week. So, yeah, I think that's plenty to be excited about.
One player very conspicuous by their absence, arguably the player that kind of gave their team the advantage in the final by winning the opening tie, was Coco Gauff, who, let's face it, was probably the best player of the United Cup, men's or women's. Certainly the only player I think that went unbeaten over enough matches. I mean, did De Minaur win every match on the men's side? Anyway.
Yeah, but played only 2 matches. So,
it's only 2 matches. But Gauff, 5-0, beats, you know, some pretty solid players, Fernandez, Sakari, Zhang, and then Muchova, who she seems to have a nice matchup with now, and is now making inroads on her rival with Iga Swiatek. And I watched her, we'll call it the final, for want of a better word. I watched the women's singles match in the final, and that was a really competitive 6-4, 6-4 match. Though there were sets that could have gone either way, but I did feel like Gauff was the better player throughout the match, and she seems to be the more likely one to deliver the victory. And Coco Gauff, yeah, I don't think I have seen her playing better tennis in her whole career.
No, absolutely. Actually, she didn't drop a set actually all week across these 5, great matches she played. Impressive because she was actually the steadier player. For a few moments during the match, Iga, played a bit better than her, won a few games in a row. Basically, the central part of both sets. But even when Iga won, let's say 3 games in a row, it never felt like Gauff was, getting out of the match, starting going into too much trouble. She has always felt very, very much into the match, into the rallies, hitting the forehand so well. I actually agree that she's playing the best tennis of her life, and also because she was also playing brilliant tennis in that summer of 2023, but there it was for me much more her being amazing in what we already knew she could have done incredibly well, while right now it feels like her weaknesses, which we have talked about many times over the past few years, are not that much a weakness anymore. Even with the forehand, she was hitting very well. The serve, it got much more solid than that what it was last year. She's working really well to to limit these weaknesses of her game, and it definitely showed. I kind of compare the way she's playing right now between the end of 24 and the start of this year, more or less like Yannick Sinner on the men's side between 23 and 24. It's giving some sort of similar situation. You can see her kind of upgrading her game, and I think she can be this year really in contention for other slams, and probably even world number 1, because if she plays like this, why not actually?
Clip this. 12 and a half minutes into the first WTA Weekly of 2025, Mario's basically just said that this will be the year of Coco Gauff.
No, I mean, actually, I know that a lot of times there is some kind of recency bias into this, but just the way you see her game, it's not just about winning many matches. For me, it's something more and different than even other times of her career where she went into good streaks. It still was not that good overall level wise, and actually it's getting more and more complete, has her tennis. So, even beating Iga twice in a row feels kind of huge, considering, historically that matchup, how it went. I mean, probably, slower surfaces maybe will still favor Iga in this matchup this year, probably on clay, I can still see this, but, still getting these wins also feels kind of huge, for what we have seen, by herself in the past.
Yeah, because I don't think the forehand was never a weapon of Gauff. It just wasn't consistent. And it was very much a confidence thing. And you can tell that she's hitting it with confidence. Has she changed her swing on it?
Yeah, there is some sort of, small changes. Also, she has worked a lot on her grip on both the forehand and the serve, and it's really paying. A bit like when reminding me of when Sabalenka worked with a biomechanic expert to fix her serve. It's a different thing, compared to what has Coco done or he's doing, but it feels kind of clever to use kind of a scientific approach to the matter, to try to avoid these shots to be a weakness, and especially to let her down in the pressure moments, because it's not like she couldn't hit forehand winners or she couldn't serve well, but in pressure moments, her not being confident in these shots and having some maybe also grip issues and everything, was letting her down in these pressure moments. We can, all remember, for example, the US Open last year. So, getting steadier also technically on these shots may, of course, help her to, being steadier in pressure points and not letting, emotions and everything to reflect on these shots.
Yeah, I mean, Coco's mentality of refusing to lose has always been pretty strong on the whole. I think there's only been like small patches of the career where that hasn't happened for her. Yeah, I think now with that sort of that lack of willingness to that sort of match, that fight that she has in matches, that fighting spirit, that refusal to give up, plus more confidence in her shots, does make her a very, very dangerous combination. And I think something that was very clear to me watching Gauff when I could was like her speed around the court always been her main strength. Yes, she's got a superb backhand, but the fact that she's got this ability to get everything back, keep the point going from pretty much anywhere in the court, that's one of the reasons why I think Muchova really struggles with her, because Muchova's variety she uses it to open up the court, but Gauff can get there. And I saw in the final, it's one of the first times I've seen it where Iga was struggling to deal with that as well. It's like someone was finally matching her defensive abilities and keeping the point going and getting whatever Iga's offensive shots back in, which is why Iga was starting to make unforced errors. It's almost like Gauff is evolving to be more Swiatek-like.
A little bit, yes, actually. I mean, we kind of know that the two are kind of the best movers in the world. So, actually the first set, a thing that struck me the most is that Coco didn't hit a forehand winner or a backhand winner from the baseline to win the set. And, just highlights how incredibly solid she was overall. And then actually in the second set, it changed a bit because, she started getting more of these winners and everything. And yeah, actually now it's kind of Iga maybe having to, I mean, the head-to-head is still kind of lopsided overall. But, having lost 2 matches in a row, now she feels like the one. If they face in the Australian Open, I will be interesting to see, will she bring something a little bit different, or she'll be the one probably with the focus on herself, trying to see what she can do if Coco plays at the level she played today, for example.
Yeah, traditionally, Iga doesn't have too much of a problem with counter-punches or defenders. I think she can hit through them most of the time, but Gauff is exceptional. I think she will, but she will adjust, she will learn. And actually, it's been interesting that the United Cup this week, there has been a sense that Iga has made some changes in the off-season. Again, the way she's been hitting her shots looks a little bit different. There does seem to be a bit more of a, she seems to be more ready for the ball, moving on these quicker courts and being able to hit through and hit winners again. It's not as loopy, her swing, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, I overall think Iga showed very positive signs these days at the United Cup. I'm not considering this loss as a bad one, also for many reasons. Actually, watching also the level Gauff has been able to put on the court. I think, for example, also mentality-wise, having been forced, also to play many 3-setter lately across the end of the past season and the beginning of this one. For example, against Bolter, she had many issues. We are watching a version of Iga, who seems like really having that willingness to stay there and fight with everything she has. And overall, I feel like, compared to the way she finished the 2024 season, actually not counting WTA finals and and the Billie Jean King Cup finals, but overall the US wing, the US Open, she feels like, she's getting back a lot of her game and her confidence overall. But yeah, I mean, it's actually, not much for me to say about her, but simply because, I think overall she's done very well. Actually, also the win against Rybakina was very, very good.
Yeah,
beating Rybakina on kind of a fast court, which we have in Australia, felt like huge for her. And let's see now in a slam. Basically, it's been not an issue of last year because she won one slam at the French Open, but not getting deep runs at the other Grand Slam events. Let's see what will change in Australia, but I feel like the partnership with Fisette can work really well, actually, because also watching them talking to each other, their interaction, I'm feeling good vibes between them, and I think they can do good things.
Yeah, I was very impressed by Iga. I think she had a really tough run this tournament. She won 2 tough straight sets matches against Muchova and Rybakina. Rybakina, she almost could have gone 3 again. And then Bolter was an epic, which was all. And although I did get the sense, from what I did see of it, that I think when she was on, there wasn't a lot Bolter could do, but Iga was very up and down through that match. And yeah, I think she should go into this Australian Open with a lot of confidence that she can make dents in it. I think the one point of concern would be is this thigh issue that she picked up during the United Cup. Whether is that going to be a niggle, or is that turning into something a bit more serious that's going to hamper her in Australia? We don't know. She's had 2 medical timeouts and matches over it. The way the Rybakina match ended, she kind of was like hands on her legs, almost relieved the match was over. It's difficult with injuries because you can read a lot into it and then the player's absolutely fine in a week, or you can completely dismiss it as it's nothing. It's probably the player playing up something for the sake of a match to try and psych the opponent out. And no, it's a serious injury. So it's one of those things that we won't know about, but I guess that would be based on what you've seen, how concerned are you about it?
I mean, it's actually a bit difficult, to judge just basing on some medical timeouts. I mean, against Bolter, actually, I was not really, really concerned. I still saw her moving quite well. Against Gauff at the end, it was a bit tougher, actually. So probably a bit more concerned, but I still think she should be fine. I don't know. I always also got the feeling, I don't know if you agree with me, that at this event Iga uses a lot of her energies also overall, even more than compared to other players. And even if you see her compared to Gauff carrying herself throughout this tournament, you always got the feeling, at least in my opinion, that Iga plays with much more pressure on herself compared to, for example, Coco Gauff. I don't know. That's also another thing that can probably reflect on, some muscle issue at times. If you have such intense 10 days playing these matches, feeling a lot of pressure on yourself. Actually, all of them very tough because, 2 of them, as you mentioned, they were straight sets wins, but, the opponent was very elite. And so it takes a lot also to win this match. And the one which could have been, a bit easier, maybe against Bolter, you had, of course, Iga maybe not playing that well as in the other 2 matches, but also Bolter playing incredible tennis, playing very, very well. And so Iga, actually it's been the toughest match of the whole week, also because it almost lasted 3 hours. And so, yeah, I got the feeling, she uses a lot of her, body, mental energies in this tournament, actually every year. And I don't know if this can affect her also in the long run. For example, when she goes to Melbourne, there's been a bit this question. Of course, she has a full week now to reset and to just prepare for the Australian Open.
Yeah, I get the sense that Iga is someone who expects to win and is frustrated when it doesn't come as easy as she would like, or she feels she's not playing at a standard that she thinks she should be. And I guess if there's a physical issue that's limiting that, that's also going to add to the frustration. But I think she's had a very good United Cup on the whole, and I don't think she should be disappointed too disappointed. It's certainly setting her up pretty well for the Australian Open. Let's move on.
I actually have a question for you about Iga. Do you think she can improve more, get more of this transition game coming to the net a bit more often when she plays against, some of these players like, Coco Gauff, or even, somebody like Coco, who on the day, she's just, peaking, finding a great level? Because even today, I saw her trying to do this a few times, but not with much precision, actually. She was not, flawless in doing this.
I think her volleys look a lot less awkward when she comes to the net. Like before, they looked almost like robotic, like she looked very stiff, whereas she seems to be a bit more softer with her volleys even recently. I think in terms of the transition game, I have seen her trying to come in more. I think that is clear. Against someone like Gauff, that is a little bit of a risk, because if a Gauff gets the ball, you have to be ready to follow up. And it's going to be really quick. So Gauff is going to make any transition game a challenge in that sense. I guess that's kind of the limit of my technical knowledge, as it were. But that's kind of where I would see it. It's like I think she's already made some progress with it, and I don't think it would be too much of a challenge to take another step if that's what's needed.
Yeah.
Right. So let's look at other players that's going to be going our way. We're kind of 27 minutes into the show, but a couple of other players I think it's worth looking at from United Cup. And let's start with Elena Rybakina. And she was one of the players that all eyes were on during the United Cup. Not always for on-court reasons. But I want to ask your opinion of, because I think everyone's kind of been looking at how's she looking? Is she fit? Is she healthy? How's she playing? What effects has Ivanisevic had? And I wanted to hear from you how you thought Elena Rybakina looked this week.
She was okay. I mean, I think she gave good indications. Even the match against Swiatek, it was a loss, but I feel like she can take positive signs from that. Yeah, probably could have been a bit more clutch, in some moments. She made a couple mistakes in the first set, which probably, in points which probably could have made her win the set. But overall, if we just consider the level, I feel like we're watching a good version of Rybakina. Of course, now it will be important to see how she gets to play in the Grand Slam. But, I feel like, especially considering where we have left her last year, actually not playing almost at all, coming back just for the WTA finals. And, I mean, still looking kind of very rusty, only against Sabalenka. It was a dead rubber. She started playing very well, actually, in that match. But, it wasn't that much to really draw any conclusion. While, here it felt like she was playing at a good level. She was kind of starting looking like herself again. And, I will try just focusing on the on-court stuff, because off-court it's a bit weird, actually. It's difficult also, for me to really dive into the dynamics of all that. Of course, there are a lot of concerns, because, when a coach is investigated from the WTA, it feels like something must have happened. Then, I mean, she says, the opposite. But it's still tough, because, why should the WTA open an investigation without having, elements or anything, kind of concrete to, to take this strong decision? So, I don't know. It's really a tough situation, which of course I think nobody really, knows most of the things around, all this situation.
Yeah, you're right. It's difficult to fully know what's going on there, because no one's ever kind of fully come out and said this is what happened. A lot of people have been hinting at what they think happened or what they're aware of. It may be one of those things that we will not know about until after Rybakina stops playing tennis.
Yeah,
maybe. I guess we just got to let things take their course. I find speculation in these kind of areas unhelpful, especially to the people who are actually involved. So I guess we'll have to see. Like, I think Rybakina did have a good week. She beat Sakkari. Who did Kazakhstan play in the quarters? It was oh gosh, who was it? Yeah, she's beaten the players who you expected to beat, and then she pushed Iga Swiatek. Okay, if anything,
Germany.
Germany,
No.
yes. So she beat Siegmund. So yeah, that probably was a person she expected to beat. So yeah, she should have. She beat the people she should have that you'd expect Rybakina to beat. Whereas there were points last year where that wasn't happening, and then she lost to Iga Swiatek, who was one of her main rivals. No big loss other than the fact that it was maybe on a surface you would expect Rybakina to be preferred on. But the story from the match was how much Iga had progressed, not how Rybakina seemed to have regressed. So, yeah, I think that's it's a good solid foundation for Rybakina to start from. I'm interested to see how she does in Australia. She's got points to gain, given that it should suit her.
Yeah, I mean, it's also good indication for me as well, winning comfortably these matches she has to win, because it's not always been the case, even in some Grand Slams when we see her having been upset, for example, last year as well. It still can happen, of course, but also to see her focus and playing the way she has to play in order to win these matches quite comfortably. So I think it's good indication overall. Then, more than this, she couldn't have done in those matches. So I think it's fine.
Yeah, I think it's fine. And then I think the only other person I wanted to cover was Karolina Muchova, who from the United Cup, who I think you kind of already touched on earlier with like Muchova kind of starting the year, how she ended 2024. And it does seem to me that I think it's clear that Muchova has a way to go has a bit of a step to kind of compete with the people who are currently at the top of the WTA, which is Swiatek and Gauff. Those are the two people who beat her this week. And Swiatek had the edge in a tight match, and it was clear Muchova's got to figure out how to deal with Gauff's speed to get a foothold in that matchup. But with that being said, she's clearly in the category similar to maybe a Paolini or a Pegula of being up there with the best of the rest.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, she's always been, meaning that, whenever she's been, healthy and being able to play and to find, more matches in a row, she kind of always showed that she can belong there. Maybe it will be difficult to see her getting a very high career high ranking, probably because she always seems to need to stop a little bit here and there, and this of course is not helping her ranking to to get higher and higher. But it's actually it will be interesting to see where she lands in the draw, because this is the kind of player, if you are a top 4 top 8 seed, you still would like to avoid her until the very final matches of the tournament, if you both arrive there. And so yeah, I mean, it's been very, very good to see. Actually, the way she played the pressure points against Paulini, it's been very good, because Paulini had many chances to win more games than what she did. Many games where she was 40-15 up, break points, actually 10 break points saved out of 10. So this is also a great indication to underline how confident she is in her game, in her tennis, because she's able to find these solutions also, when the score in the game is looking a bit tricky or something like this. Of course, the losses against Swiatek and Gauff kind of showed, a little bit the difference that there is between her, which is still an elite player, and the top 2-3 players like Gauff and Swiatek, especially those two, because Sabalenka, she matches up well, but for me it's mostly, of course, because of the difference of their game. Sabalenka compared to Swiatek and Gauff, Sabalenka has other strengths that match up way better, with Muchova's game compared to Iga and Coco. So yeah, overall, I think she just showed that she's someone we cannot sleep on, and I won't be surprised if she manages to have a deep run at the Australian Open actually at all.
I think she's got a good chance, because she's going to be in the 17 to 24 seed range, which, if I'm right, and you can correct me on this,
You're
think
right.
she's going to avoid a top 4 seed until the quarters.
Top 4? No, as for I think, it's kind of top 8 seeds.
Top 8, yeah.
She will draw in round 3. In round 3, somebody between 9 and 16.
Yeah.
And then in round 4, I think she can still draw, also the top 4 seeds. I think. But I mean,
good chance of making second week.
Still, it's huge, because if she is, I don't know, seed number 25, she could draw Iga in round 3, and then it's, of course, I'm unlucky for both.
But I would say, given the other players like in that 9 to 16 range, I think she's got a very good chance of making the fourth round in that case. And then she's got to hope that then she's in the section where she's dealing with a 5 to 6 player from the top 8 in the fourth round. So I think, fourth round quarters is definitely on the cards, provided that she's provided that she's fully fit, which at the moment looks like she is. There we go. I think that about wraps up the main storylines from the United Cup. Are there any other players that you would like to touch on before we move around to the other Australian events, the official WTA events?
I think we talked about the biggest storylines. Also we touched a little bit on other players. I don't know, for example, Katie Bolters played a great match against Iga. We, kind of mentioned it before already. I think we can move on actually.
Okay. Let's talk about then Aryna Sabalenka winning Brisbane, the 500 event, and yielding big points. I think Sabalenka went under the radar this week, and I think that was helped by the fact that there weren't any of the top players in the draw she was playing in. She was expected to win. And she kind of just got the wins by not necessarily having to do her A game, from what I've heard. I saw a few things. She had a little bit of a tussle with Putintseva in the first set of their match. I think Polina Kudermetova getting a set off her in the final was a little bit of a surprise. But I do think that, not a lot of people were really getting excited about Sabalenka in Brisbane. But I think if she got the job done on her B game, that suggests she's going to be dangerous in the Australian Open if she's forced to move up a gear.
Yeah, and then, when she played Andreeva, which was kind of on paper the toughest match she had all week, she stepped up, and that was also an encouraging sign. She played the best match of the week. She played there in the semi-final. Yeah, today it was, tricky stuff. Polina Kudermetova has become the first player not named Rybakina to take a set of Arena in Australia since 22, and which feels like a little bit of a surprise. But, you know, just getting the title, winning these actually 5 matches, it's, you know, good sign for her coming into Australia. You know, I'm not going there too much in saying in this moment she could have done a bit better, this game she could have played a bit more precise, or all these things, because in the end, you know, it's not the most important thing for her in this week, you know. So you know, I feel like, yes, you know, we've seen her actually since, you know, more than 2 years being able to just, you know, play at a whole different level whenever a Grand Slam comes. And, you know, I struggle to see her not doing the same in Australia, at least, you know, talking about the first week, you know, the first part of the tournament. So, you know, I will be very, very surprised to not see her getting another deep run at the Grand Slam, which is coming.
Yeah, I think it would be a massive shock if she didn't. I honestly, this is going to be a bit of a spoiler, but I think the only, obviously, Rybakina is established as being a thorn in her side in Australia specifically.
Yeah.
I've seen enough progress from Gauff and Swiatek at the United Cup to suggest that they are now in the mix to challenge her. I can't see anyone else, maybe Muchova, given she seems to be a bit of a problem for her, with a really, if that would be a really unfortunate draw, really bothering her in Australia. I think her history there is backed up by this easy win in Brisbane. And yeah, at this rate, she may as well just go for the Australian Slam. She's got Adelaide, she's got Brisbane, she's got Melbourne. Where, like, she just needs to, where else does she need to get?
No, I mean, she's actually, you know, maybe she's not always the most talked player overall. You know, I feel like maybe also because they are younger, whenever, you know, Swiatek and Gauff play at a very high level, they are always, you know, they kind of steal the show media-wise a little bit, you know. Also, I mean, it's normal this week because they played against each other. You know, the Gauff, Swiatek played many, you know, elite players, which, you know, Sabalenka hasn't really done in Brisbane. It's been a bit of an easier week on paper for her. So, but yeah, I mean, she's just become an incredibly reliable player, which is, you know, even weird because with Sabalenka, the speech is always, you know, a bit strange because she has been told to be, you know, a player who was not very reliable at the beginning of her career, even if actually, you know, if we look at her ranking, if we look at her, you know, slam runs, actually starting from 21, where she's starting getting to the semifinals, you know, she never really disappointed, actually. So, yeah, I would really treat an early loss as one of the biggest shocks in recent years, you know, at Grand Slam events, you know. A bit like if, you know, Iga loses early at the French Open, you know, would be kind of a similar shocking thing.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, Arena losing early at any slam, particularly ones on hardcore, would be that level of seismic. So, and let's face it, I can't think of anyone who realistically looked like touching her in Brisbane, even though Kudermetova won a set. It felt like, I think, I mean, I wasn't really watching the match, but I think there was this sense that, like, whenever I was checking in on it, that Sabalenka just needs to find another gear and she'd get the job done. And yeah, I think that yeah, she's got to. She'll show up, she'll get the job done, and I think it's going to be very, very interesting when she starts clashing with the bigger names at the Australian Open in Melbourne. And she is the world number one for a reason, and that's where we're seeing these this kind of question of consistency. Although I think number one is on the line in Melbourne, if I'm right. I think it's her and Swiatek going head to head for it.
Yeah. I
I
actually
think it
think
requires Arena to have a really bad.
I think Arena needs a better result compared to Iga. Actually, if you took away, the points they earned last year, I mean, I think we can see, a bit of probably changing of the guard. They're up in the ranking this year because for the way, they got their points last year, then Iga defends a lot between Doha and the French Open. So, if Arena loses it at the Australian Open, then she may get it back at, ahead in the season. I actually think, both have the destiny in their hands, meaning that still, if Arena defends the title, it doesn't matter what Iga does at the tournament. So, I mean, it will be fun for sure. Actually, probably one of the first times we really have, a number one fight, which can become interesting because they start very close.
Yeah, I'm very, very interested to see how that progresses. That's going to be one of these stories of the Australian Open, with also, let's see what the chasing pack are going to do and who's closed up. Yeah, that's Arena for you then. I think the only other, in terms of Brisbane stories, I mean, let me know if there's any others that kind of catch your eye. I would say I do want a quick word on Polina Kudermetova. This is reminding me of the run Linda Noskova had a couple of years ago, similarly to the Adelaide final, I think, when she lost to Sabalenka similarly, but she also then had to go and do qualifying.
Yeah.
Young talent. And like now Polina Kudermetova is going to go do Australian Open qualies from tomorrow. Yeah, I think Polina's been rocketing up the rankings, and I think this week we saw why.
Yeah, I mean, now she's top 60 in the ranking, so it will be a bit weird to see a world number 57 to play the Australian Open qualies. But of course, we know how the entry lists work.
I mean, we saw someone in the top 40 playing qualies in the men's side last year with GMP.
Yes, exactly. And so, it's of course a tough turnaround. We've seen, for example, with, Noskova, when it happened 2 years ago. And also that year, it was also Parks having a great ranking, having great results, leading up to the Australian Open qualies, as also failing to qualify. So it's not easy because you have to win 3 matches against players who are all eager to, to have great results. And of course, after such a tough week, because she played a lot of matches starting from qualifying, the qualifying draw, then winning all these matches against Arena. She did a great job because, going more or less toe-to-toe, at least for, a part of the match against the world number one. It's for sure, a testament, she should, I think, left Brisbane with her head held very high for the way also she fought today and she played. So, yeah, now let's see how she will be able to reset everything and start from... I didn't check the order of play, actually, but I think it's not going to be tomorrow, but the day after tomorrow.
Yeah, I think so.
It's tough. We've seen many cases where the player coming from these sort of results has not managed to perform well in the Australian Open qualies. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, the most important thing is, of course, for her to grow up in the ranking so that, French Open, Wimbledon, she will most likely be in the main draw directly. So,
Yeah, I think it's going to be exciting. If she doesn't make it, we know we're going to see her in the main draw of the French and Wimbledon. Pretty much guaranteed, I would say. Do you know what? Her rise has caught me off guard because I think I started hearing her name a lot more back end of last year, kind of going through the 125Ks and the ITFs. But I wasn't hearing it loads before that. And she's 21, so comparatively late developer in the women's game. But now she's got everyone really excited for her. She already outranks her sister. Let's see how she continues to progress. I think I'm interested to really kind of watch and see how she plays and how she matches up. So yeah, Polina Kudermetova, big story from Brisbane. I think the only other story from Brisbane I wanted to touch on before moving on to Auckland, because I know people really want us to talk about Auckland, and that is on Jabeur. Came out looking better than we were hoping in that tournament.
Actually, yes. I admit that I was not expecting her to be actually very good. She played very well, and even the match she has lost against Andreeva, I feel like she was fine. She was playing a good match. So I think it's very, very positive signs, from her, considering the way her last season, went, and the way also it ended with the injury. So, maybe we can also see in this first part of the season a new Jabeur, meaning, free mentally, being, she used to put herself onto much pressure. I've always seen this. We've seen her, her game style actually being kind of opposite to her, her mental game, because she's, I was not actually even watching her smiling that much on the court anymore. She was looking really down also before her injury. So, if we manage to see back Jabeur, which is free mentally, and this of course can help a lot with their brand game, because if you want to play a good drop shot, a variation, of course being in a good mental state can really help you to perform your game well, and to also think better about all the chances you can have on the court. So I'm pretty much excited to see her actually, in the coming weeks, because, we shouldn't forget how good of a player she is. So I feel like she can still be, a big part in the women's game.
And she showed that at points throughout Brisbane. It was lovely seeing her doing her thing, hitting drop shots, hitting that forehand so flat as she does. She's got a lot of points to gain. If these next few months, like the majority of the points she does have are from clay. I think she's going to be one of those players you do not want to have in your draw in the Australian Open.
Oh, actually, she's unseeded.
She is unseeded. She could have been if she won Brisbane.
Exactly. I misplaced here with Sakkari. I think she should be seeded.
Sakkari is the last seed. She will be seeded.
Yes, exactly. Jabeur isn't seeded. Yeah, that's huge, actually.
Yeah, there's a number. She joins a number of players that you don't want to run into if you are a seed early doors.
They are many, actually.
Yeah, including the two people who made the Auckland final, which I cannot believe we are about to talk about the fact that the winner of Auckland didn't win a set. Wasn't even ahead in the set. Because Naomi Osaka won the first set 6-4, and then immediately retired and handed Clara Towson a third trophy of her career. Long overdue. It's great. They both had great runs. I mean, Auckland was brilliant for that was the tournament. A lot of these underdog players who were super popular, having really good runs. Also, like Robin Montgomery, Alicia Parks. A few of these other players were in the mix there. And it was really, that was a lot of fun of following that tournament. But the final was a little bit of a damp squib. I don't want to be too negative though, because Clara Towson is a friend of the show, and we always like to see her succeed. And I guess she was kind of saying, "I'm happy, but not," in her winner's speech. Big. But yeah, so kind of weird result today.
Yeah, actually, I didn't stay up for the beginning of the final. So when I woke up, I found I was a little bit confused. Meaning, okay, I actually catch up with what happened, because when I first saw it, I was like, it's a bit weird, weird situation. And I mean, first of all, I want to say we actually bring kind of good luck to the friend of the shows, because all of them had won WTA titles recently. We have also Susan Leymans, Zeynep Somnets, all of them and have won WTA titles. And but talking seriously about the final, I don't know what to say, because Osaka was actually playing very well in the first set when I watched it this morning. And then, I mean, of course, I'm kind of concerned about her issue for the Australian Open. I hope that, also kind of tears we saw, they were mostly because of the disappointment of not being able to complete the final and to get her chances, rather than, concerns about the Australian Open, because still this shouldn't cancel a very good week, a very positive week for Osaka, for the first time in a while, winning these kind of many matches in a row. So, positive week, of course, also for Clara Towson, regardless of what happened today. It's a bit weird. I mean, of course, she would have still had her chances, because, I mean, it's not best of one set, but best of 3 sets. But yeah, it was starting looking, because when you lose a set, the first set against Osaka on a hard court, usually you're not able to come back. It hasn't happened many times. Yeah, I mean, it's been a bit disappointing, of course, to see, also because, not the greatest way to close a very, very brilliant week of tennis in Auckland. Yeah, we'll see about these 2 players in the upcoming weeks. Also Towson, I'm very interesting about, because I've always been very, very high on her, talent and her, her qualities to be, in a better place. So yeah, let's see. But of course, today it's been kind of anticlimactic, to watch this result, the way it ended and everything. So it hasn't been, comfortable for me watching.
No, I would agree with that, because I was going to ask you like how optimistic you were about Towson, because you're right. Like at the end of 2021, she was seen as like one of the biggest, like, exciting talents coming through. She was winning WTA titles as a teenager, and then 2022, 2023 hit by injury. 2024 wasn't an easy road back. Maybe, and she only broke 4th round of a slam for the first time in her career at the US Open recently. I think she will be a dangerous unseeded player. She always has been. But was it the US Open? Actually, it might have been the French. Anyway, she got 4th round of a slam last year. Yeah, I think I am optimistic for you as well. I would love to see her, maybe because she's a friend of the show, but also because, she did stir up all that excitement to do some more interesting things in slams and whatnot. So yeah, go Clara Towson. And by the way, again, this might be one for when John gets around to watching this back. We need to clip that and say, hey, if you do an interview with Talking Tennis, you win WTA titles. Your career prospects go through the roof.
And just be Paulini.
Paulini. Right. Nowhere near making a major final before talking to us, and then after talking to us, made 2. So yeah, get this WTA. If you're watching, if you want to be, if you want to make some success in your career, reach out to us. We'll happily do some interviews. Yeah, I think everyone wants to talk about Naomi Osaka. Great week for her up until when she got injured. Yeah. And for anyone who doesn't know this yet, you can go on the Talking Tennis website and you can read a piece that I wrote talking about what the WTA players' expectations should be for themselves ahead of the season. So rather than doing a preview, a prediction of where like they should be ranked or are they going to be ranked at the end of the year, or what slams they're going to win. It was, well, let's look at their trajectories, and from their perspective, what should they expect for themselves as a bare minimum, and what should they push themselves towards. And Naomi Osaka was the last player I mentioned. And spoilers for the piece, I said her minimum expectation is try to get to top 50, because she shouldn't be outside the top 50. I don't think she expects herself to be at the top 50. That's what she said publicly. Stretch goal, win a WTA title of pretty much any level. And she's pretty much she always hit both in the first week.
Yeah.
Okay, she needs to end the season in the top 50. She still needs to consolidate all the points. But I was like going, well, where do we go from here? And then sadly, she wasn't able to actually lift the trophy, but this suggests that she shouldn't be far off.
Well, for me, it's actually weird to see her not ranked top 20. but yeah, I mean, of course, it's been last year. It was a little bit, unlucky in some situations with draws and everything. But also, in other circumstances, she was not really at the level she, was asked to be in order to, of course, getting higher and higher in the ranking as she should be. I mean, I hope that the way this final ended is basically, I'm not going to risk my health and the next weeks for this match, which is an approach I actually don't disagree with, especially with the Grand Slam coming up, because, when you are a 4-time Grand Slam champion, of course, I know that you want to get your hands back on the trophy, but regardless of whether you are the favorite or not for that Grand Slam, you still, want to be fit and play that Grand Slam with, having all your chances to do the best you can. So I hope this was the main reason why, she stopped, immediately, and not, she stopped immediately because it was so serious that she couldn't even play one more point, But yeah, what we saw this week is, very positive overall. Playing and beating, many good players, players you should expect maybe a Naomi Osaka to beat, or Naomi Osaka at her normal level. But still, last year, for example, she didn't actually manage to do all this. And also considering that she told in an interview that she won't hang around too much if, her results fail to manage her expectations. It feels big for her to having a positive week to start the year. And, of course, hoping she's fit. And, the injury is not that serious, hopefully get her getting better and better results for, the next weeks. Because, of course, a tennis game with Naomi Osaka in the mix is, of course, better and more valuable. That's for sure.
Absolutely. I think it'd be super exciting to have her really in the mix. Multiple time champions at their peak are always great to watch. And if she's competing with the likes of Sabalenka, Gauff and Swiatek, wow, that's going to be brilliant. We saw that a little bit in the French Open last year when she gave us one of the matches of the season against Swiatek. So, yeah, if she's ready to go and she's not hampered in Melbourne, great, because, again, she's going to gain some points because she went out first round.
Yeah,
last year. Keep building that ranking up. Get back to something like where she wants.
Remember me, has she played Pliskova last year?
Garcia.
Garcia.
It was Garcia. Yeah. Yeah, but she was still kind of fairly fresh at that point. No, that was before. I think that was not one of the Pliskova first round clash, which they always seem to run into each other in the first part of last year. Yeah, I'm excited by the prospect of Osaka playing well. I know people have been super positive about it. Again, it's that new coach bounce with Mouratoglou does seem to be making some kind of difference. Let's see where this goes. I am hoping we see her with some kind of WTA trophy at some point this year. Who knows where she gets ranked? Yeah, I agree with you, Mario. Let's get Osaka back up there. if we can. Right. Before we wrap up, I have a couple more questions I want to ask you, Mario, kind of more generally. So, kind of related to the Osaka point. I am about to record the WTA Power Ranking after this. I know I have an idea of what my top 10 is going to be. Pleased to hear I'm not going to make it up whilst recording it. I've had 8 of my top 10 decided for the last 2 days. I only decided like the last 2 slots. But I want to know, like, what decision would you have made with the players I had in mind? So 2 slots available, top 8 already decided. So if you don't hear a name and you think they should be in there, they probably are. But like 2 players out of this list. Jessica Pegula, Daria Kasatkina, Deanna Schneider, Donna Vekic, Danielle Collins, Naomi Osaka, Madison Keys. Barbara Krejcikova was also on there, but she pulled out, so can't add her in the mix, unfortunately.
Among these players, there are spot 9 and 10.
Yes, these are the players fighting. These were the players fighting for spots 9 and 10. Who would you have put in?
Okay, I get it, because I mean, not going to.
No, that's not the top 8. That's not the top 8. Nowhere near the top 8.
Well, I mean, I would say, I know
it's very hard, isn't it?
I know her physical state has not always been flawless in the past year or so, but I still think Jessica Pegula should be in, at least in the top 10, even if 9th or 10th in this power ranking, I still would put her name, because, we know that if she's feeling the game, she's tough to beat. And, of course, that also was another kind of shocking loss last year she had in the second round. There were many upsets last year sorry.
Oh, you're very popular.
Yes. Sorry. And no, I was just saying, so I would say, Jessica Pegula's name. Yeah. And I'm a bit doubtful about the rest, because, I know that, for example, Osaka is a name that can be there, of course, especially, after watching her winning these matches this week. But there's also a lot of, for me, there's still some sort of question mark, and you mentioned Keys.
Yeah.
Schneider.
Yeah. Keys, Schneider, Vekic. Osaka, Collins.
No, I'd go with Osaka. I'd still go with Osaka. Probably I would say Pegula and Osaka, because, I don't know, Schneider is for sure a player who, I think she will break in the top 10 this year. I don't know if she's ready for a big run at this Australian Open. So probably I would left her off, maybe regretting it in a few weeks, in a couple of weeks. But Keys, I know that she's always a dangerous player, but, I don't know if I would put there in this ranking. Kasatkina, I don't know. She usually struggles in tough matchups that she has on the tour.
Kasatkina could go either way, really. She could either go like quarterfinal, or she could go out first round.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, I'd probably go with Pegula and Osaka, especially because despite some question marks there are about them, I know the level of tennis they can play, and I wouldn't be shocked if they, they pull off another great week. Let's see, maybe also mentally wise, Pegula having had a deep run at a slam, meaning the final at the US Open can help her also mentally play a bit freer in a slam. I don't know, but and also usually she plays well in Australia at the Australian Open. I mean, last year she lost in the second round, but her previous results, also her first Grand Slam breakthrough was at the Australian Open. So
yeah, I think she's made quarters 3 consecutive years, at least 2.
3 consecutive, yeah, 21, 22, and 23, if I'm not wrong. Yeah. So yeah, I would stick with these 2 names.
we'll see if I stuck with those, if I chose those two names when that video comes out.
That's true.
So interesting that we went with that. But yeah, it was a tough choice, and I was like trying to like pick out who looked kind of best or who had the most potential. To answer Marcus's question, this is my opinion of who the most likely person is to win the Australian Open, ranked 1 to 10. So 1 being the most likely, 10 being the least likely. It's also kind of a prediction of where I think they might end up. So like if you're 9 or 10, I'm relatively confident you're going to make second week. And then if you're like 1, 2, maybe even 3 or 4, you're in the you're kind of in the mix to win the thing. So that, or at least make semi-finals. That's kind of where I see it. So yeah, hopefully it's not too controversial, although I do like a little bit of controversy just to get people talking. The showman that I am. All right, I want to sign off with the last question before we go. We're not going to do like a deep preview of the upcoming tournaments. I think we've kind of gone on for a while, but what would you say was the best WTA match that took place this week across the 3 events?
Oh,
if there's a tie, I will let you have ties.
No, that's a bit tough because I'd probably still go for today's match because the second set really, first set was a good one, but the second set we've seen many incredible rallies and points. I was thinking also about Swiatek's battle against Bolter, but because I really enjoy the matchups where Swiatek is forced to green against a player who is full of confidence, and also especially that third set having been, let's not forget that Bolter had a break point and the ball was a millimeter away for Swiatek's backhand was a millimeter away from going out, and Bolter would have served for the match. So also the pathos was really, really big on that one. But what I saw today in the second set probably makes me lean a bit towards Swiatek against Gauff today, regardless of the fact that it ended in straight set. But for the caliber of the players, the way they played against each other, I don't think Iga has played a bad match, for example, today. I mean, she could have played better. She made, few mistakes that she could have avoided. But, I also want to think about what was in front of her on the other side of the net. So probably I'd go with this one.
Swiatek Gauff. Yeah, I think it's up there. I think it deserves to be nominated for that. I would go with Swiatek Bolter because it went to a deciding set.
Yeah, that's true.
I think there was a lot more excitement about that match when it was happening. And I think the deciding sets usually sway me a little bit more, unless the quality is insane of the 6-4, 6-4, which, to be fair, it was pretty good with Swiatek Gauff. So I think it's still a good choice. I think it's interesting that Swiatek, apart from poor Helgo, who she played first, was like pretty much in every match of the week contender, which probably did not help if she was carrying any kind of physical issue. It probably made it worse. I would go with Swiatek Bolter just because I think it's a fair factor. But I'm shallow like that.
Especially, also, better that we had the 6-1 in the second and the 6-4 in the third, So you had the moment where the pathos went a little bit off. And then, the deciding set was actually very tight, especially because Bolter had her chances. It was great. Also, very good to see Bolter play that way. We haven't talked a lot about there, but, maybe we can talk about there in the future if she manages to play this well.
I mean, that is the best Katie Bolter's ever played.
Yeah, definitely.
Possibly. I think that's very, very clear to me.
The tiebreak was insane.
yeah, I mean, the way she came back to win that first set was so good. I'd written her off. Like, okay, Iga's a breakup. She's going to struggle. I thought going in that Iga would crush her. And I was very impressed by how Katie Bolter just did not allow that to happen. So, yeah, really, really good sort of tournament from Katie Bolter. I think, yeah, she was one of the stories of it. As was Zhao Jinyu, by the way, with her epics against Haddad.
Oh, yeah. And also the first set, Gauff and Shuai Zhang have played against each other was incredibly good, actually. Zhang played some sublime tennis in that first set and probably even deserved a little bit more to win it. But I mean, that's what the great players do. You know, they often steal the set anyway, and then as Gauff did, you know, then just run with that.
Okay, well, I think that about wraps that up. I am just going to do a quick heads up of what's happening this week. So we have a WTA 500 happening in Adelaide, where we will be seeing some kind of top players having their first tournament of the year. So Jessica Pegula's the top seed. She's going to be making a 2025 debut. Danielle Collins, who wasn't in the United Cup as like the second player for the US, didn't get to play. She's going to get some court action. Elena Ostapenko is kicking off her season as well as defending champion, as well as Alan Kanonskaya there in the seeds. And then you've got...
already done it.
Has she? Has Ostapenko already played?
I think she's played.
My mistake then. I
was kind of sure about this, but now you're making me doubtful.
Okay, I'm going to look it up. Ostapenko. Yeah, you're right. She did.
Okay.
But she lost to Bushkova. Sorry, forgot about that. But she's starting her partnership with Shea Su Wei in Adelaide, which will be an exciting story for the doubles. And then, we've got Marketa Vondrushova also coming back from injury. That's her comeback event happening. So relatively stacked draw for relatively top.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out in the end, because usually these tournaments kind of tend to end, you know, we've seen couple walkovers, you know, so let's see how it really play out as a tournament, but whatever.
And then we've got Hobart, which is a 250, where Diana Yastremska is the top seed. It's basically everyone who's not seeded at the Australian Open or doing qualies is playing that tournament. So not a lot to kind of notice other than like some of the guy, like some kind of best of the rest names in the mix there, but still could be very interesting to keep an eye on there. So there we go. That's what's coming up. Mario, thanks for coming on. Always a pleasure doing WTA Weekly with you.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it a lot, as usual.
It's always a good time. It's always a good time with everyone in the chat today. I've loved seeing everyone's kind of discussions going on as Mario and I have been talking tennis, and like there's all kinds of conversations going on. Just to say, if you are here, you're hoping to talk about ATP tennis, we do have an ATP Weekly episode coming up in about 5 hours, I believe. And if you can't catch it live, then you can always watch it back like you can with this if you've come late and watch from the beginning. We also have Damien doing an Australian Open men's qualifying preview where he's going to be making his predictions section by section of who he thinks is going to get into the Australian Open main draw. No surprise, Hal Fonseca's probably going to be featuring very heavily in that preview. Much like Polina Kudermetova would be doing the same if we were doing a WTA one. All right. And keep an eye on the channel. We'll be doing as many Australian Open previews as we can. We will be doing a draw reaction to the Australian Open draw when it's announced, which will be 4:30 a.m. GMT, which would be 5:30 CET, I think.
No, it's the opposite. 4:30, it's Central European time.
Yeah, so 3:30 a.m. GMT. Yeah. But you can catch up with our thoughts and live reaction to that draw when it happens on the channel. And then we'll be doing plenty of Australian Open previews. We'll be doing WTA Weekly and ATP Weekly on Saturday once we've wrapped up Adelaide and Hobart. So If you want to come and hear great WTA takes from a man with a rubbish memory, then come back for WTA Weekly. And until then, keep talking tennis.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.